Throughout the history of the NBA, many people mistakenly believe most NBA players have had an easy journey. This is far from the truth. Even though there is a huge potential for fame and fortune, the life of an NBA player is often filled with immense challenges and requires vast dedication and hard work, which is not always rewarded. While there have been players who climbed to the pinnacle of success, many more have faced extreme hardships and personal struggles. Rarely do we hear about a professional athlete whose difficulties led to the tragic loss of their life. John Brisker was one such player. Once a fearsome competitor in the NBA, his life took a dark turn, shrouded in mystery. Welcome to Bold Bios. On this channel, we tell the story of history's most important and sometimes not so important people. If you enjoy this type of content, you should hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you get notified every time we upload a video. With that being said, let's now examine the story of John Brisker. Considered the American Basketball Association, the ABA, a remarkable league that existed from 1967 to 1976. Though it's been a long time since the ABA last held a game, its mention still captivates people's interest. Looking deeper into the ABA, a league known for its tough athletes and fierce competitors, one player undoubtedly stood out among the rest. John Brisker was a talented athlete with a strong connection to Detroit, even though he never played for the Pistons or any other local team. Born on June 15, 1947, Brisker grew up in Hamtramck, a small city near Detroit with fewer than 23,000 residents. Life on the outskirts of the Motor City was challenging for him and his family. As a young boy, Brisker was independent and carefree, living by his own rules. His mother suffered a stroke, leaving half her body paralyzed. However, she persevered and continued to work, raising John, his brother, and two sisters, despite the government's efforts to separate them. Witnessing his mother's daily struggles shaped Brisker into a resilient young man, well-equipped to survive the rough streets of 1960s Detroit. Back then, if someone demonstrated exceptional toughness, playgrounds were named after them. Brisker used to play basketball at a playground between Hamtramck High School and Highland Park, which was eventually named in his honor. In addition to basketball, he dabbled in boxing during his youth. With his size and skills, Brisker could have pursued professional boxing or the NFL, but ultimately discovered his true passion on the basketball court. John Brisker's basketball career began at Hamtramck High School, where he played with his childhood friend and future NBA player, Rudy Tomjanovich. Later, he attended the University of Toledo and played college basketball for the Toledo Rockets, under the guidance of head coach Bob Nichols. Brisker's first 3 seasons with the team were remarkable, with him quickly becoming a collegiate star. In his sophomore year, he averaged an impressive 14 points and 9.4 rebounds per game. He continued his excellent form in his junior year, averaging 14.5 points and 6.8 rebounds per game, while being named to the Detroit Free Press All-Suburban squad. By his senior year, Brisker averaged 10.7 points and 5.7 rebounds per game. Despite his undeniable talent, Brisker's academic performance began to decline, and he became increasingly frustrated with the racial tension at the university. While attending the university, Brisker was subjected to racial discrimination by some white students who refused to socialize with him. This was a time when racism was still prevalent, and Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech had recently been delivered. Brisker was a frequent target of discrimination because of his ethnicity. Eventually, his frustration with the university's disharmony led to insubordination, and he was kicked off the varsity team during his senior year. In high school, Brisker had been able to socialize freely with both black and white students, but the same was not true at Toledo. Unfortunately, the racial discrimination he faced at the University of Toledo affected his academic performance, leading him to drop out his senior year in 1968. Brisker, along with Spencer Haywood, then decided to take their talents to the ABA. Following the 1969 ABA draft, Brisker joined the Pittsburgh Condors, where he made his official ABA debut on October 19th of the same year. His incredible talent was immediately evident, and he soon became a key player in the team, starting in place of an injured veteran. Brisker quickly gained a reputation as one of the ABA's most impressive discoveries, proving himself to be a true asset to the league. John Brisker was an imposing figure on the court, standing at 6 feet 5 inches tall and weighing in at 210 pounds of pure muscle. Although he had the shooting touch and agility of a swingman, he often played like a power forward. His rookie year saw him averaging an impressive 21 points per game, a feat he bettered in his second season, scoring an average of 29 points per game, and finishing third in the ABA scoring race. Whether shooting from long range or driving the ball down low, Brisker possessed an innate ability to score at will. Moreover, he was a triple threat, capable of rebounding and defending with equal finesse. Despite his undeniable skills on the court, Brisker was often known for his reputation as a menacing and hot-tempered brawler. One incident that exemplified this was when he got into a fight with his Indiana Pacers teammate Joby Wright. Wright had hit Brisker, but John shook it off and retaliated with a blow that knocked Wright's teeth out. His teammates and opponents quickly learned not to mess with Brisker. Nevertheless, Brisker's on-court abilities allowed him to establish himself as a two-time All-Star and one of the best players in the ABA. John Brisker was a highly physical and aggressive player, often taking his intensity to an extreme level, which sometimes led to violent behavior on the court. His reputation for intimidation was well known, and he frequently engaged in fights with opposing players, resulting in many ejections. In fact, Brisker was so often ejected that he earned the moniker the heavyweight champion of the ABA. His aggressive demeanor extended beyond the court, and he was not one to back down from a confrontation with coaches or even referees. Even teammates were not safe from his wrath if they crossed him in any way during practice or games. There was an incident where he threatened to use a gun after a hard foul during a team practice. Despite his violent tendencies, Brisker was also a highly talented player with impressive scoring, rebounding, and defensive skills, making him a triple threat on the court. Although his skills as a basketball player were affected by this particular aspect of his game, rumors circulating at the time indicated Brisker was considered a formidable threat due to his reputation for carrying a loaded gun to and from games. Despite his prowess on the court, some of Brisker's teammates expressed concern that he might act recklessly if provoked, even in the slightest, prompting fears that he would pull out his firearm and shoot. Art Becker, a 6-foot 7-inch forward for the Denver Rockets, must have been aware of this possibility during their game, as Brisker's most infamous moment came when he threw a brutal elbow at Becker only a few minutes into the game, resulting in his immediate ejection. However, Brisker was not content to leave it at that, as he charged onto the court after Becker 3 more times before being restrained by police officers and escorted to the Condors' locker room. During a game in Pittsburgh, Brisker was attempting to post up while a player was trying to defend him by fronting, which is a common defensive technique. Suddenly, he reached around and attempted to hit the other player in the head. This was not the only incident involving Brisker's bad behavior, as he seemed to find trouble off the court. In the autumn of 1971, John and his girlfriend attended a World Series game in Pittsburgh. After the game, Brisker got into an altercation with another man over a cab. He refused to leave the cab, resulting in a physical fight that attracted the attention of 4 police officers. Brisker was ultimately arrested, but not before he fought with several officers, injuring 2 of them. These incidents, along with others, contributed to Brisker's growing reputation as one of the most unstable and explosive players ever. Despite his temper, however, Brisker was also highly intelligent and deeply interested in his African heritage. He borrowed books about African culture and even began wearing a dashiki, a traditional African garment, to express his pride in his heritage. Although Brisker's expression of his African heritage would be accepted in today's society, during his time, it made him a target of discrimination, with many labeling him as a black militant. However, he refused to let the negative attitudes affect him. When the ABA canceled the Pittsburgh Condors franchise in June of 1972, the roster was placed in the dispersal draft, a process where players are assigned to a new team when their current team merges with another or ceases to exist. John needed a new team to play for, and after 3 successful years in Pittsburgh, he decided to take advantage of his ABA success and signed a lucrative multi-year contract with the NBA's Seattle Supersonics. Despite warnings from the NBA commissioner and the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers had drafted Brisker in 1969 and still owned his NBA negotiation rights, Sonics owner Sam Shulman pursued Brisker and eventually signed him to a 6-year, $1 million contract. Brisker proved himself a valuable asset to the Seattle Supersonics team, contributing as a role player and even scoring 30 points on 4 occasions in his first season with the franchise, despite being a bench player. He also became involved in the community, attending charity events and organizing basketball clinics for underprivileged children in low-income communities, generously paying for the expenses himself. Despite his success on the court and philanthropic gestures, Brisker fell into drug use around the time of his NBA debut in 1972. This was a time when the league experienced widespread cocaine abuse and non-televised games, which contributed to Brisker's decline in performance during the 1973 NBA season. His scoring average dropped significantly, going from 26.1 points per game in the ABA to only 11.9 points in the NBA, and continued to decline in subsequent seasons, reaching as low as 7.7 points per game. Despite his head coach, Bill Russell's criticisms, Brisker still managed to contribute to the team during his time in Seattle. In the 1974-75 season, he played a key role in helping the Sonics reach the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. In fact, he was the team's 3rd leading scorer in the playoffs that year, averaging 13.3 points per game in 6 games. Brisker's frustration with Russell and the Sonics continued to grow, and he began to act out. In one game against the Boston Celtics, Brisker got into a physical altercation with one of the opposing players, resulting in both being ejected from the game. He was also reportedly seen drinking alcohol during games and practices, and his relationship with Russell continued to deteriorate. At the end of the season, the Sonics traded Brisker to the Pittsburgh Condors, who had just re-emerged as a franchise in the ABA after a year-long hiatus. Brisker returned to the team that originally drafted him in 1969, but things were not the same as they once were. The team had relocated to Minnesota and was now known as the Minnesota Pipers. Brisker played just one season with the team before being traded to the Virginia Squires, where he played the final 2 years of his professional career. After retiring from basketball, Brisker's life took a dark turn. He reportedly went to Uganda to try and start a business, but things did not go as planned. In 1978, he was declared missing and presumed dead after disappearing during a trip to Uganda. There are various reports of what happened to John Brisker after he arrived in Africa, but none of them have been verified. Some claim he was killed while trying to negotiate a business deal in Uganda, while others say he joined a rebel group and fought in the Uganda-Tanzania War, which took place in the late 1970s. Another theory is that he may have simply decided to stay in Africa and start a new life there. Despite numerous searches and investigations, no conclusive evidence has ever been found to confirm any of these theories. Another conjecture suggests he could have been engaged in unlawful activities such as smuggling or trading weapons, and that his actions may have led to his murder. It is even speculated that he might have become part of a group of soldiers for hire fighting in Angola, where he may have died. Despite the various theories about Brisker's disappearance, the truth remains unknown, and it is a heartbreaking loss for his loved ones, fans, and the basketball world. His vanishing remains one of the most significant enigmas in NBA history, and it is a shame that he was never able to fully demonstrate his basketball talents or have his fate uncovered. Brisker was considered a missing person from 1978 until 1985, when the King County Medical Examiner in Washington declared him dead at the age of 38. Even a decade after his departure from the NBA, there are still skeptics who believe Brisker is alive and well, but simply does not wish to be found. The concept of a professional athlete vanishing without a trace is almost unfathomable, regardless of the truth about his fate. John Brisker was a force to be reckoned with, and anyone who crossed him knew better than to challenge him. However, he left behind 2 young daughters, a house, $29,000 in his bank account, and a legacy of court battles over his estate. He was a talented athlete who could shoot, rebound, and fight with equal ferocity. Despite his short tenure with the Seattle Supersonics, Brisker had a lasting impact and is still fondly remembered. According to those who knew him, he was fiercely loyal, intelligent, and passionate. The mystery surrounding his fate only adds to his mystique, and he remains a lost talent who could have been a star and the NBA's most perplexing mystery. Today, John Brisker lives on only as a lasting memory. Anyways, that's it for the video, guys. If you enjoyed the content here on Bold Bios, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you get notified every time we upload a video. Until the next time,